My first night at the Missoula Target didn't start with a handshake or some boring orientation video. It started with a receipt. No, seriously. I had just made it through the sliding glass doors, 10 minutes to 10, still sweating from jogging across the half-lit parking lot, when this guy stepped out from behind the guest services counter. Skinny, pale, red hoodie half-zipped over his uniform. He looked like he hadn't seen the sun in weeks. His eyes were sunken and glassy, like he hadn't slept in longer than that. "Hey," he muttered, holding something out between two fingers. It was a thin strip of receipt paper, creased and slightly smudged. I blinked, still catching my breath. I'm Marcy, the new..." He cut me off and started talking over me. "These are just things to keep in mind," he said. His voice was quiet, almost monotone, like it had been a while since he'd had to talk to anyone. "Store gets weird after midnight." Then he slid the paper into my hand, turned without another word, and walked through the backroom doors like a ghost clocking out. I stood there for a second, confused. The air inside the store felt weird, too still, too cold, like the HVAC was trying too hard. I unfolded the receipt and saw 7 rules written in red Sharpie. 1. Always clock in at exactly 10 p.m. If you're late, don't enter the building. Wait in your car until sunrise. 2. Never speak to a customer after closing. If someone asks for help, pretend you don't hear them, even if they know your name. 3. Ignore the mannequins. Don't touch them. Don't move them. If one is smiling, leave the aisle immediately. 4. If you hear music from the toy section, do not investigate. No one has stocked batteries in that aisle for years. 5. Use the backroom mirrors only once per shift. Do not look into any other reflective surface after midnight. 6. If the intercom clicks but no one speaks, count to 7 with your eyes closed. Do not open them until it stops. 7. If you see me near the garden center around 3 a.m., don't follow, just keep walking. I let out a short laugh. Hazing, it had to be. Just some night crew inside joke to freak out the new hire. I mean, it's Target, corporate, beige, and aggressively normal. Still, I folded the list and shoved it into my back pocket, just in case. The back room was quiet when I stepped in. Stacks of boxes, metal carts, and those bright fluorescent lights that always make everything feel just a little sickly. The break room was tucked behind a swinging door labeled Associates Only. And that's where I found the guy again. He was standing at the punch-in terminal, arms crossed, staring at the screen like he was waiting for it to do something impressive. I glanced at the clock above the microwave. 9:59:51. Neither of us spoke. I shifted awkwardly, rubbing my arms. The air was colder in here. Then the clock hit 10, and he pressed the button. It beeped. A green checkmark blinked on the screen. He stepped aside and gestured for me to go. I fumbled for my badge, hands suddenly too clumsy. I scanned it and pressed the button. He flinched. Just for a second. Like a twitch he couldn't help. But I caught it. I looked at him. "So what happens if you're late?" His eyes didn't meet mine. "You don't want to know." Then he walked out without waiting for a response. I stood there for a second, hand still hovering near the terminal. My stomach tightened in this weird way, like when you forget whether you left the stove on and you're too far from home to check. 4 seconds late. I wasn't even that late. The rest of the night felt normal, I guess. Or at least boring enough to almost convince me the whole receipt thing was a joke. I pushed pallets of snack food, faced end caps, ran into a guy named Don who worked the back dock, and didn't talk much. Nobody mentioned the rules. Nobody asked how my first night was going. Nobody smiled. I kept glancing at the mirrors, though, and at the mannequins. Nothing happened. At 6 a.m. sharp, I clocked out and stepped outside. The early morning air was thin and damp, like it hadn't fully decided if it was summer or fall. The lot was empty except for my car and a few others near the back. And that's when I saw it. Across the lot, through the glass doors of the garden center, something was standing inside. A person. Still. Motionless. They were facing me. Red hoodie, half-zipped. It looked like Eli. I stared for a full 5 seconds. Then I blinked and he was gone. By Tuesday night, I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. The figure in the garden center. The weird list. Even Eli's flinch when I clocked in 4 seconds late. I told myself it was all nerves. First week jitters. A new job in a giant, empty store that felt more like a vacuum chamber than a workplace once the doors locked for the night. But part of me still kept the rules in my back pocket, just in case. That second night, I clocked in at 9:59:58, cutting it a little close, but this time, Eli gave a tiny nod. Not friendly exactly, just approving. I hadn't asked for his name yet, but I'd caught it on his name tag last night, crooked and faded like it had been through the wash too many times. Eli. No last name. He didn't say anything this time either. Just drifted back toward receiving, like he belonged more to the store than to himself. I was assigned women's apparel. The folding tables near the fitting rooms, stacked high with V-necks and jeans that somehow managed to end up on the floor 5 minutes after you organized them. The mannequins stood along the front row like they were waiting for Judgment Day. Smooth, blank faces, neutral stances, featureless but for faint cheekbones and generic collarbones. At first I ignored them, focused on folding. Line up the edge, flatten the middle, stack it with the logo facing out. Easy muscle memory from retail jobs past. But then I caught it, a glimpse, a flicker, that feeling you get when you know someone's watching you, but when you look, no one's there. I raised my eyes, and one of them was smiling, not a soft, implied curve of molded plastic, not a trick of the light. A mouth, an actual mouth, curved, grinning, full of yellowed teeth, too many of them, crooked and tight like they were crammed in too small a space. There was something black stuck between the front two, something stringy and wet. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I blinked. The mouth was gone. The face was blank again, as smooth and lifeless as the others. But I couldn't stay there. I couldn't pretend that hadn't just happened. I backed away from the table, nearly tripped over a rolling rack, and left the department without a word. I found myself in seasonal, somewhere between 4th of July leftovers and an early Halloween end cap. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I could still see it, those teeth, the way the black thing had stuck between them like it had just finished chewing something it shouldn't. I was pretending to rearrange plastic skull tumblers when Eli appeared. He didn't say hello, didn't ask if I was okay. He just looked at me and said, "Rule 3. That was all. Then he walked away. No explanation, no warning, just a reminder. But it was enough. I didn't go near the mannequins again for the rest of the night. Didn't even walk past that department. Every time I thought about it, my stomach clenched like I'd swallowed cold soup. I kept my eyes down, avoided reflective surfaces, and moved like someone trying not to wake a sleeping bear. When my shift ended, I didn't waste time. I clocked out at exactly 6 a.m., pushed through the sliding doors, and didn't look back. But I couldn't stop thinking about that grin. It wasn't just a creepy moment, it was real, and whatever it was, it knew I saw it. By Wednesday, I had stopped pretending the rules were a joke. Something about that mannequin's grin had burrowed its way into me. It wasn't just creepy, it was intentional, deliberate, like it had smiled for me. So when I got to the break room that night, I didn't talk. I didn't make eye contact with the other two guys clocking in. I clocked in right at 10 p.m., not missing a single second. The beep sounded sharp and clean. Eli wasn't there. It shouldn't have bothered me. It wasn't like we were friends. But him not showing up at the start of shift left this weird hollow in the room, like something was missing. Like something important had forgotten to show up. I was assigned to home essentials, light bulbs, batteries, flashlights, all the stuff you only buy when something breaks. The aisle always smelled like warm plastic and stale cardboard, and for some reason the lights flickered more there than anywhere else in the store. By 2:20 a.m., I had stopped checking the time. I was kneeling, cutting open a box of LED strips, when it happened. The intercom clicked on. Just a dry pop, like someone pressed the mic button and forgot to speak. No voice, no music, just static. Soft, constant, like white noise spilling from a dead station. I froze. My hand stopped moving, the box cutter slipped from my grip and clattered onto the shelf beside me. I didn't need to think. The memory of the list flared up in my brain like a fire alarm. Rule 6. If the intercom clicks but no one speaks, count to 7 with your eyes closed. Do not open them until it stops. I closed my eyes, and I started counting. 1. The air shifted. Not cooler, not warmer, just different. Like the pressure in the aisle had dropped. 2. Something brushed my cheek. A whisper of movement, not wind. breath, cold and wet like it had just come out of a freezer. 3, my ears popped, like I'd climbed a mountain in 3 seconds. My chest tightened and I swallowed hard. 4, footsteps behind me, not quick, not slow, just steady, deliberate. I clenched my fist to keep from turning. 5, a hand closed around my wrist. The skin was ice cold and dry, the grip firm, but not bruising. I couldn't move. I didn't try. 6, my stomach dropped like I was falling down an elevator shaft. I felt weightless for a split second, then wrong, like I didn't belong in my own skin. 7, the static stopped. The hand let go. The pressure snapped back to normal like a rubber band. I opened my eyes. Nothing was there. The aisle was empty. The air was still. The shelves were just shelves again, packed with light bulbs and blister packs and sale signs. I collapsed backward onto the floor, gasping. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I scrambled to my feet, shoved the box aside, and ran. Didn't even know where I was going until I hit the bathroom door. I didn't make it to the stall. I threw up in the sink. It felt like something had been inside me. Not literally, but close. Like something had wrapped itself around my heartbeat and waited to see if I'd crack. When I finally came out, wiping my face with a rough paper towel, Eli was standing just outside the door. He looked worse than before. His hoodie was zipped all the way up now, his sleeves pulled over his hands. His eyes looked darker than usual, like whatever color they used to be had drained out. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just said, "You did good." I stared at him, still trembling. What would have happened if I'd opened them early? He didn't smile, didn't blink. "It's worse," he said softly. "Much worse." Then he walked away. And for the rest of the night, the intercom stayed silent. I've never liked mirrors. Even before all this, they creeped me out. Something about seeing your own face move with you, but never quite belonging to you. Like maybe the reflection was just pretending, waiting. So when I got to the break room Thursday night and saw myself in the wall mirror above the lockers, I kept it quick, pulled my ponytail tight, checked for smudged mascara, moved on. No Eli. Again, not a single sign of him since the intercom incident. His name still showed on the schedule posted near the time clock, but the line next to it was always blank. No notes, no initials. Just Eli, back room. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to know the answers. That night, I was restocking paper towels near the back room door. Nothing unusual. Same dim hum of overhead lights, same flickering panel near the receiving hallway. I kept my head down, my cart moving. Around 12:03 a.m., I felt an itch on the side of my neck. I reached up and found a scratch, a thin, fresh line just below my ear. It hadn't been there before. I pushed open the back room door and found the tall utility mirror mounted on the wall across from the loading dock. Same one I'd used Tuesday night. I stepped in front of it. Just a normal reflection. Same blue polo, same tired eyes, same scratch on my neck, red and shallow. That was my one time. Rule 5. Use the backroom mirrors only once per shift. Do not look into any other reflective surface after midnight. I backed away and finished my aisle. I told myself it was fine. I was being careful. I remembered the rule, followed it to the letter. But Target is full of mirrors. I didn't realize how many until I walked past electronics. The big wall of demo TVs was glowing faintly, showing static backgrounds and muted product loops. The sound was off, but the visuals rolled on in endless rows. Flat screens turned to face the aisle, like eyes lined up in formation. I didn't mean to look, but something moved, just enough to catch my eye. I turned, and there I was, smiling. My reflection in the TVs, dozens of me, all grinning wide and unnatural, every screen showing the same awful version of my face. Teeth bared, eyes glassy, head tilted just slightly too far to the left. I wasn't blinking. I took a step back. The reflection didn't. It held still, frozen in that smile. I turned and ran, fast, no hesitation this time. I knocked over an end cap of DVDs and didn't stop to pick them up. I didn't look at any polished surfaces, didn't check my phone screen, didn't even glance at the glossy freezer doors when I passed grocery. When I finally got to the janitor's closet, I locked myself in and sat down on a case of toilet paper. The room was pitch black. No metal, no mirrors, no glass. I sat there for nearly an hour. When I finally came out, the TVs were off. All of them. Not on standby, not paused, just dead. Black screens, no reflection, no smile. I didn't see Eli for the rest of the shift. No one did. But at the end of the night, when I checked the mirror in the break room before leaving, I swear I saw it again, just for a second, that smile. By Friday, I was running on fumes. I couldn't sleep. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw something. Teeth in a plastic grin, a pale hand on my wrist, rows of TVs grinning back at me. I'd wake up gasping, unsure whether I'd slept at all. I still went in, because I didn't know what else to do. Part of me thought if I just got through one more shift, it would all stop. That maybe the rules only mattered for the first week. That maybe Eli would come back and say, "Congrats, you made it." And I'd laugh and cry and ask what the hell all of this even was. I clocked in at 10 exactly. There was no one else in the break room. Craig had assigned me grocery. I think he called it light work to keep me from snapping in half. I nodded along like I appreciated the kindness, but my stomach was in knots the entire time he was talking. His smile was too wide. His eyes were too blank. By 2 a.m., I was restocking trail mix and trying not to think about anything. I kept my eyes on the shelves. My hands moved automatically. Grab a box, open it, face the product, repeat. The sound was small, soft. "Excuse me." I turned before I could stop myself. There was a woman standing behind me. Brown hair, red shirt, no name tag, no cart. Her hands were at her sides. Her head was tilted slightly, just enough to make it look off. "Can you show me where the protein bars are?" she asked. Her voice was warm, familiar, too familiar. It hit me like a punch in the chest. My legs nearly gave out. It was my mother's voice, but my mom had been dead for almost a year. Car accident. Ice on the road. One of those fluke winter mornings in October. I had to clean out her apartment afterward. I still kept her voicemail saved on my phone. I didn't answer. My throat locked up. My hands trembled at my sides. I stepped back, not blinking. The woman's smile didn't change, but something in her eyes flickered. Her face twitched, like someone pulling on a puppet string too tight. The skin around her jaw stretched too far, like it was glued over a shape that didn't quite fit. "You used to be polite, Marcy," she whispered. That did it. I backed away fast, my heel hitting the end of a pallet jack. I nearly tripped. She turned then, graceful, unnatural, and walked down the freezer aisle. I didn't follow. The sliding glass doors of the freezer section opened with a hiss. She stepped inside into the long aisle of frozen meals and frosted glass. The doors closed behind her, and the windows misted over. I stood there, frozen, long after she was gone. I kept staring, waiting for her to come back out. For the doors to open, for the fog to clear. They didn't. The freezer lights stayed on, but nothing moved inside. I checked my phone for the time. 2:16 a.m., I hadn't said a word. I'd followed the rule. Eventually, I made myself move. I left the aisle, left the department, didn't look back. I didn't see Eli that night either. But when I passed the break room later, the mirror was gone. Just a blank patch of wall where it had always been. Like it had never been there at all. By Saturday, I didn't recognize myself in the mirror anymore. Not that I'd looked. I'd started avoiding anything reflective. Microwave doors, freezer glass, even the shine off the polished end caps. The only reflection I trusted was the one in my own thoughts, and even that felt shaky at best. I got to work early, parked in the far corner of the lot, and stared at the building like it might move if I blinked. Nothing did. The light stayed steady. The windows stayed dark. I waited until 9:59 p.m. to head inside. Eli still wasn't there. I clocked in alone. 10 on the dot. The terminal beeped and cleared my name off the screen. Tonight's assignment: general merchandising, aisles 18 through 26. That included toys. The moment I read it on the clipboard, something in my stomach dropped. Cold and heavy, like a coin dropped into a deep well. I remembered Rule 4, if you hear music from the toy section, do not investigate. No one has stocked batteries in that aisle for years. I thought about asking Craig to switch assignments, but I didn't, because Craig hadn't spoken a word to me since Friday, just left the paper on the desk and walked off. So I did what I was told. I kept my head down, unboxed stuffed animals, avoided the rows of blinking plastic faces staring from the shelves. Dolls, action figures, blinking LED swords. None of it felt like it belonged in a store anymore. Around 2:40 a.m., I heard it. Soft at first, tiny and broken. All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. The sound drifted out from the back of the aisle. Section 24. Kids' music toys and plush electronics. But I knew for a fact nothing had batteries. I'd helped clear that section earlier in the week. Everything with power had been pulled and boxed. Pop goes the song cut off mid-verse, like someone had yanked the cord out. I didn't move, I didn't speak, I just stood there, rooted between rows of board games, trying not to breathe. Then came the scream. It wasn't a sound a child should make. Not that long, not that wet. It echoed down the aisle like it had been chewed up and spit back out. High-pitched and desperate. A sound full of torn throats and broken breath. Then silence. No more music. No more crying. Just the hum of overhead lights and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I didn't check the time. I didn't move toward the noise. I turned slowly, keeping my eyes forward, and walked away. One foot in front of the other. Past the board games, past the baby toys, past the clearance bin full of old Halloween masks and unwrapped plushies. That's when I saw it. A doll I didn't recognize sitting in the center of the bin. Bright red dress, curly blonde hair, plastic smile. And across the front of the box, printed in perfect block letters, "Hello, Marcy." I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just walked to the break room, sat down at the farthest table, and stared at the wall until shift ended. Eli never showed. Not once. When I clocked out at 6 a.m., the screen glitched. Just for a second. My name flickered. Then something else appeared beneath it. "Welcome back, Eli." I didn't wait to see what it meant. I just left. By Sunday night, I was barely holding it together. I'd stopped eating more than a granola bar or two. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, even when I wasn't moving. I kept my hoodie sleeves pulled over them so no one would notice. Not that anyone was paying attention. The day shift never looked me in the eye anymore. And Craig had started pretending I didn't exist. That suited me fine. I didn't want to exist there either. I almost didn't come in. I sat in my car at the far edge of the parking lot, engine running, watching the Target sign flicker from red to black every few seconds. A part of me wanted to drive. Just keep going. Highway, rest stops, gas stations, anything but this. But I needed to know the truth, because I hadn't seen Eli in days, and I had to know if he was real or something worse. I clocked in at 10 on the dot. The screen froze for a second, then beeped. When it cleared, the name above mine hadn't changed. Still said Eli, backroom. Still empty. All shift, I waited. I stocked shelves, faced product, tried not to think, but every time I passed a window, I found myself looking for him. Every time a cart squeaked down a distant aisle, I paused. It wasn't until 3:02 a.m. that I saw him, standing just inside the glass doors of the garden center, motionless, pale, hoodie half-zipped. He looked just like he had on my first night. He didn't wave, didn't move, he just stared. And then slowly, he turned and walked through the shadowy stacks of soil bags and mulch, disappearing into the dark. I knew Rule 7, I knew what it said. If you see me near the garden center around 3 a.m., don't follow, just keep walking. But I'd broken so many rules already, and I couldn't leave without knowing. The garden center doors slid open with a soft mechanical whine. The air hit me like a wall, wet and earthy, the sharp scent of fertilizer clinging to the back of my throat. The lights inside were dim, half burned out or flickering weakly overhead. The shelves loomed taller in the dark, casting long shapes that didn't quite match their shadows. I stepped in, the door closed behind me. For a moment there was nothing, no movement, no sound. Then I heard it. Dragging. Something heavy scraping across the concrete floor behind the bags of potting soil. A slow, uneven pull, like something was being hauled with effort. I followed the sound around the side of the display, and stopped cold. A torn sleeve of red hoodie was sticking out from behind a cracked wall panel, faded, stiff with dried blood. The fabric was heavy with mold and dust. My hands trembled as I reached out. I peeled back the broken panel, slow and careful, already knowing what I'd find. Eli, curled in on himself, jaw slack, eyes hollow, skin sunken and pale gray, mottled with rot. He'd been there for weeks, maybe longer, partially covered in insulation and rat droppings. His name tag was still pinned to his chest. Eli, no last name. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My legs gave out and I dropped to the floor beside him. My breath came in ragged gasps. The whole room felt like it was spinning. I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911. They didn't believe me at first. They thought it was a prank. But I stayed on the line until the cops arrived, and when they pulled Eli's body out, they all went quiet. No one had an explanation. Craig, our manager, denied ever employing anyone named Eli, said there was no record, no file, no emergency contact, nothing. Just a blank space on the payroll. But the next day, when I came back to the store to clean out my locker, I found something taped inside the door. A strip of receipt paper, written in red Sharpie. Rule 1, always clock in at exactly 10 p.m. It was all of them. Even the last one. If you see me near the garden center around 3 a.m., don't follow, just keep walking. Underneath that, written in smaller handwriting, for the next one. I quit that night. I didn't ask for my last check. I didn't give notice. I just walked out and never came back. But if you ever take a night shift at a Target, if someone hands you a list that feels more like a warning than a welcome, follow it. They might just save your life.